Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right, but I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who could move, right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore because you want that additional rushing yardage. You know, you get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown, right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable, right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But you know, I do have hope for him. I think at season's end he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson is going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, that hit. Remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Welcome into college football today here on SportsGrid TV. Most importantly, it is the post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Dubs Anderson. We have a lot of good football to get into. You guys saw me extremely hype for the first set of games at the top of the day, but the second set of games did not disappoint and only got better and better. Not to mention is that we still have a handful of games going on right now that are equally as good. One of the most talked about ones of the week being Tennessee, number 6, taking on Oklahoma, 15. And let's just say Oklahoma was struggling quite a bit as expected. I told y'all how I was weary as to their performance, seeing as how Houston almost stunted them in the beginning of the college football season. But let's see what Dubs has to say about the top games of the day, or maybe not the top games of the day. Maybe he's feeling as lucky as I have been feeling today because Best Bets rolled for the first slate, and we might have to do a combined review of the second Best Bets of the day. But while we wait to get Dubs on the board and bring him in, there he goes. Dubs, what's going on?
Kasey, what up? Happy Saturday night. I tell you what, we will be combining the betting slips if the word on the street is correct. The mail I'm getting is that you've been seeing very well going through week 4 here for the college football slate. Tell you what, no Georgia, no Bama, but some of the big dogs came out to bark here earlier today. A couple of big upsets, a couple of great games as well. I feel like we've really been spoiled through the last few hours, the way that some of these have finished up. And as you highlighted, a couple of great games still in the mix here for the late slate on a Saturday. And I tell you what, if you've missed it, Cam Ward, surprise, surprise, he's putting up PlayStation numbers yet again. One of the big contenders there in the Heisman market, which I'm sure we'll jump into.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I'm happy to see him do well, but he did obviously impact my my late slate card that we will go over towards the end here at College Football Today post-game party. But as for the games that are still going on, one of the top talked about ones being Kansas State taking on BYU. A lot of people, when they looked at this head-on, match-to-match, whatever you want to call it, they had Kansas State basically being the top team when it came to the trenches and thought that that was going to help them supersede BYU. Then another handful of people said do not count out BYU. At the current moment, Kansas State up just 3-0. And as for Mr. Prime and his team, this game has gone back and forth and back and forth. Baylor putting on a show, Colorado responding with their own spark. It's been fireworks all around, 24-24 deadlocked with 6:24 left in the fourth quarter. And then, as I mentioned, you've got Tennessee versus Oklahoma kind of sitting at this stalemate, 22-9 for a hot minute. We thought Oklahoma was getting on the board there. They've had to change out their quarterback. Not that I was high up on Jackson Arnold. I just thought that he was going to help out, cash in on some ground game action, but that's not the case as Hawkins Jr. takes over at quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners. So those are just the current games going on right now, and we will keep you posted as the scores continue to change and rear about. But we got to figure out, what was your favorite game of the day so far? You mentioned fun games, exciting games, upsets. What drew your attention top of the day?
Defending champs, finally looking like the defending champs. The Wolverines, Michigan, put on a masterclass. They needed every single second to get it done there. It was the last play for them. They're trying to drive it in. It was a 4th and goal, and they run one into the house to get the score over USC for the Trojans. I'll tell you what, for USC and Lincoln Riley, they can still take a lot of respect from this game. They go down 27-24, but for Michigan, we've highlighted style points count for a lot. This certainly gets them back into the conversation. They needed a big win. They got it done at the Big House. Ann Arbor was absolutely rocking. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't an easy one. It was back and forth. It was a real arm wrestle. And Orji, their quarterback, did absolutely nothing in terms of that passing game, but he used his wheels. So it wasn't enough as a long-term solution. They're a quarterback for the Wolverines, but it was enough to get the job done today going against USC, and they absolutely needed it.
Oh, yeah, and they're the reason why I ended up in the best mood possible today, because I wasn't particularly sold on USC completely commanding this game. That's why I'll have to paint that picture, because I just couldn't get past the fact that their run-stop defense wasn't highly notable, and then everyone figured that this defense that played through 2 weeks and went past a LSU team barely was just going to be this outstanding, completely in control, dominating team. So we got some great football out of that one. I think that the Wolverines got a confident chip on their shoulder as deserved. But as for Orji, only 32 passing yards. They didn't bring this guy in to pass the ball. No, they brought him in to use his legs, but he only racked up 43 rushing yards. Thought he's going to hit a little bit more. Doesn't mean that he worked against me, though. And then you got Mullings, who's just been a workhorse for this team. Another 100-plus, or I should say 140-plus yard rushing performance, 159 to close out the day between these two teams. Dubs, I got to ask you, if Michigan can continue to play the way that they did, even though they had to rally back into this one versus USC, do we see their poll standings changing as the weeks continue to progress along, or do they still have a lot of more work to do?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to take a lot of respect away with this victory. And you look at the schedule for them, it's pretty favorable. They get to take on Minnesota next week in their building before they go on the road, taking on Washington in the 24th there in Illinois. So it gets a little tougher in a few weeks, but I think they can rattle up a couple of numbers, stuff the old box score, if you will, to get a bit more credit behind what they've seen to start this season. So this was a massive showing for them. And with the new playoff look, 12 teams punching that ticket to the playoffs now in college football, they're still live in this one. They couldn't have afforded to drop this game. I think that would have been the season done there for Michigan. But this also allows them to just sort of find their groove, takes a bit of pressure off moving through the next couple of weeks where hopefully they can figure things out there on offense. You highlighted Mullings. Fantastic again with that run game, 159 rushing yards and a couple of tutties, but they got to figure out that quarterback play. They're going to go up against a couple of tough secondaries. The further we get into the regular season, it wasn't enough from what we saw there from Orji. Maybe he can start, trying to get a bit more chemistry with some of these wide receivers, but if they just lean on the run game alone, they're not going to come out on the right side of a lot of these low-scoring affairs. And I'll tell you what, I'll give credit where credit's due. Miller Moss, star quarterback for USC, he was fantastic for a losing team. His stock is only trending in the right direction there. So it's not all doom and gloom for USC. It was a must-win for the Wolverines, and they'll take a lot of confidence moving through the next couple of weeks.
I appreciate giving flowers where flowers are due, so thank you for the shout-out for USC. You said a key word there, solving, and I think that makes a perfect pivot to talk about Clemson taking on NC State. Again, another game where there was kind of some split decisions here, not in terms of who was going to win, but maybe whether or not it was safe to cover the spread on this one. But most importantly, I think we saw a Clemson team that's starting to get into a rhythm, starting to find some cadence, starting to find some that chemistry from last year. So what did you see in this one? Clemson coming out on top 59-35.
Yeah, Clemson get the cover there. They went off at 17.5-point favorites with a low total at 44.5, so a lot more offense than what was projected there by the odds makers. You highlighted Cadence. I'll highlight Cade Klubnik. We've got the old triple C's there. I'm not talking Canadian club on a Saturday night, although I wish I was. 3 touchdowns there from the star quarterback, 28 points in the first quarter. So they set the tone, dominant fashion early in this one. NC State were playing catch up from the jump, and they just couldn't find their way back into this game. So it was a much-needed score for Clemson. They rattled up the scoreboard and just enough to get that cover if you're bullish on their chances coming back in for this one. So they'll take a couple of points in the right direction.
Yeah, I feel like a number of games, the total was just completely either obliterated in one way or another. They massively hit it over, or they massively hit it under. I mean, one game in particular, Tennessee and Oklahoma. I thought that 56.5 total was wild because you have one quarterback that can sling the ball, but we haven't seen a slinger on Oklahoma's roster whatsoever. So far it looks like the under is going to probably pan out on that one. Some people thought it was going to touch that total. I was surprised to see that one. Continuing off of what you just mentioned about Cade Klubnik, his name trips me up 100 times a day. 209 passing yards, 3 tutties, but that's not even the most impressive part, right, Dubs? It's the fact that he didn't only air out the ball for 200-plus yards. It's his ground game, 70 rushing yards and 1 tutty for himself. I mean, how much more fun does it get on college football for you to be able to air out the ball and then secure yourself your own touchdown? I hope that he had himself a dance and a day in the end zone when he found it, but this team is starting to pull things together quite perfectly. Phil, 107 rushing yards, 1 tutty himself, and then when it comes to airing out the ball, it was Adam Randall that was matching pace for pace with his quarterback. 5 receptions, 69 receiving yards, and 1 tutty. But Dubs and I still have a lot to get into here on college football today, the post-game show, so don't go anywhere. SportsGrid has to hit a quick break. We break down the scores of the current games going on and continue to run down the slate, so stick with us after we get back to this quick break.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than game time decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Brew Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind LA, that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into College Football Today, the post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Dubs Anderson, running through all the excitement of today's college football slate, giving you the recap. Going to talk some AP poll. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. We were just breaking down Clemson versus NC State. A lot of people having hope that NC State was going to rally a bit sooner and make this game a little bit more interesting and close, but I will say it was good to see signs of life out of Clemson. Quick update before we get back to our recapping. Tennessee now up 25-9. Oklahoma with the ball, but under 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Not sure how much more life we'll see out of Oklahoma at this point. Then you got Georgia Southern, 10 points to Ole Miss's just 52 casual points. Of course, Dart continues to have himself a heyday versus any competition that he goes against, but I'm glad that flow looks so nice under his helmet. So he's winning all around the board right now. We didn't expect anything different out of Texas. 51 points, making it look easy. 51 points to 3 points for LA Monroe. We weren't expecting much comp in that. It's still sitting at 3-0 when it comes to Kansas State versus BYU. And then Miami closes the door on South Florida 50-15. So a big whomping L to me, who thought that South Florida was going to cover. They were very close. We're not going to dig into all that quite yet. Cameron Ward, 404 passing yards, 3 tutties, 1 interception. I mean, what do we say about this anymore, Dubs? I feel like we've given him credit, love, shout-outs. I mean, what else do we say about Ward?
Well, we cannot say he's the Heisman champion just yet, but again, continues to stuff the old stat sheet. These are monster numbers. 404 passing yards, can do it with the wheels there as well. 50-15. I was actually watching this game closely. I needed the Hurricanes to cover in this spot, and it was actually pretty close. For most of the first half there, I'm going, come on, let's get it together. And they absolutely flew in the second there, 28 unanswered. So for the poor old South Florida Bulls, they're trying to play catch up, and they just came out from the halftime break and showed absolutely nothing there. So for Miami, they cover the 15.5. That total set off at 63 in the hook. So it's amazing, Kasey. The ebbs and flows, but so often these odds makers are so on point. So this one's just going to cash by 2 points there to the over 65 total there, over the 63.5. So well done for Cam Ward. He is making every post a winner, and rightfully so. Now one of the shortest prices on the FanDuel Sportsbook in terms of the Heisman conversation. And you look at the numbers he's put up, even prior to what we saw out there today. It's been fantastic. More than 1,000 passing yards coming in to this spot today. So 73% completion rate, very efficient there as well. So Cameron Ward, Miami, another big win, more style points, and that number continues to shorten up in the Heisman market.
Absolutely. And Heisman stuff we'll probably dig a little deeper in shortly. But speaking of quarterbacks, there was a quarterback that was talked about quite a bit heading into this Saturday slate, and it was Cam Rising. Is he healthy? Can he go? Should he even be throwing? Since he injured his throwing hand, is it worth it? And everyone was forgetting that a certain Mr. Wilson was actually pretty okay last week, and his team rallied behind him, and the buy-in was completely there. So they did all of that chatter for nothing, because Isaac Wilson marched into the stadium today and decided to pass for 207 passing yards, 1 tutty. The 2 interceptions, not so great, but he's still very young. Everyone relax. He did have a massive 48-yard run, though, that he did not even hesitate to take down the field. Utah comes out on top 22-19. Oklahoma State started to inch their way in there, but I mean, it was late in the third and then a little bit in the fourth. But for the most part, Utah controlled this game from top to bottom. What'd you see and like out of this one?
Shout out to Isaac Wilson. I mean, he's become a good friend of the show. He's got his flowers the last couple of weeks, and he'll get him again here for this spot. The Utes were fantastic. This was their first Big 12 game after leaving the Pac-12, so it had a bit of extra juice there. You highlighted a couple of the struggles for Isaac Wilson, but he didn't flinch, right? He just took it in each step. He got out there. They needed him to deliver, and he absolutely got it done in a prime spot. For Oklahoma State, a couple of question marks there. I mean, star quarterback Alan Bowman, he was benched after a pretty lackluster first half, and then returns midway through the fourth quarter to rally his team and almost pull off, I guess, the return from the dark victory, but it wasn't meant to be there. So for Alan Bowman, a little consistent at quarterback wasn't a great sign going towards the old Gatorade cooler there to start that second half, but at least he showed a bit of moxie, a bit of grit to return and show a bit of fight there for the Cowboys. But this is a massive win for the Utes. They get it done without Cam Rising. They now know that they can sort of, not rush him back into the mix. I still think he is the guy to lead them through the rest of the season once he is, back to at least 100%, but back to full health so we can get him back out there. But Isaac Wilson, tell you what, this freshman, he looks fantastic, following in the footsteps there of big brother Zach.
I was waiting for you to mention something, but friend of the program is a great way to put that, because we do have to give him some love. And I think that he did show that they don't need a rush rising back whatsoever. And a healthy rising especially can be a dual threat quarterback. And he had some injuries they had to weather last year and the year before that. So no rush here. Let Isaac do his thing. Not to mention is that he's got such a reliever when it comes to Bernard, because this guy had 182 rushing yards today. It's just insane to see what they can do, not only offensively, but defense. Utah has a tremendous pass rush defense on the attack. This game I thought was a lot of fun. I think that a lot of people heading into this college football season were highly anticipating that Vanderbilt was going to be underestimated. While they did not get the W, they made this game very interesting, falling short to Mizzou 30-27. But boy, did they go back and forth, toe-to-toe in the first quarter, and then kind of edged a lead in that second quarter. Started to fall behind in the third, and then so on and so forth. Obviously, Mizzou comes out on top. I knew they were going to win by a field goal, though. What'd you see in this one?
I thought it was fantastic. For the Tigers, they go off at 18.5-point favorites. And it was I guess it was a story of the kicker there. Blake Craig overcomes 3 misses with the field goals, steps up to the mark there in double overtime to deliver the victory for the Tigers. We keep going on about style points, how much they matter a little more, but for the Tigers, win, survive, advance, move on to the next one. It's a much better outcome than giving up a couple of points. So they didn't cover, but at least they got the victory and remain undefeated, 4-0 for the year.
Yes, well, a lot more football to get back to between myself and Dubs, and we've got a score increase in the Tennessee versus Oklahoma game. So that means you guys have to go absolutely nowhere. We're going to go to a quick break here on SportsGrid TV. You are watching College Football Today, the post-game show with Kasey Hudson and Dubs Anderson, as we run through the Saturday college football slate. So stick with us as we go to a quick break.
Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right? But I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who can move. Right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore, because you want that additional rushing yardage. You get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown. Right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable. Right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But I do have hope for him. I think at season's end he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson is going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, that hit. Remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Back at it with college football today, the post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Dubs Anderson. We're running through this Saturday slate. A lot of fun games, a lot of interesting takes to break down. I don't know if my computer is just like playing with me right now. I swear I just saw that Oklahoma was sitting at 15 points. We went to a break, we come back, and then it's like back to 9. I do know that Oklahoma has not been having much luck or love in the red zone. So outside of what I thought was going to be an update for Oklahoma is just a small update, 25-9. Tennessee obviously containing their lead with a whopping 1 minute and 18 seconds left in this game. I don't know if we break this one down yet, Dubs. What are you feeling?
No, we're going to hold off. And I saw the same as you there. I'm still seeing 25-15, so there might be a little something in this. But look, I think it's a little too much, a little too late. Just a minute left here on the clock. And for Tennessee, this has been a really strong game, but not the points projected. I'm still sweating on the total unders here. This is one of my best bets. I know we're going to jump into those a little later in the show, but I was banging on not seeing a lot of points. It looks like we're probably going to hold on to that one, but interested to see with what's really going on here. I'm a lever. I've still got to get this name under wraps there. Nico, my guy for Tennessee.
I am my
lava. It's
I
tough.
watched the YouTube video 500 times, and he said it himself, and I was like, slow it down, kid, slow it down. And then he said, I am my lava. That's what I got from it, at least.
Lava.
Okay,
you're going to take the reins with that one. But still some great football being played there. You know, Kansas State, BYU, they're locked in a low score, just getting underway in the second. So it's been a really strong Saturday. On the betting side, it's been fantastic there as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into our cards. I'm trying not to get ahead of ourselves, because last week I'm sure you knew I was just like, light it on fire. Let's never talk about it again. We can just discuss your card, and that was the end of it. But today we get to brag about something for K Huddy, so we are excited to get to that. We're not going to jump the gun. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to pump the brakes just a little bit, but who's not pumping the brakes? The Baylor Bears. They take the lead 31-24, breaking that stalemate, and there's under a minute-ish, or right at a minute, in the fourth quarter there. Then when it comes to Kansas State, they just add another field goal to the tally, so 6-0, topping BYU. And let's get back to the recaps of the day. I think we should talk about a little Ohio State football versus Marshall. Another massive spread game that a lot of people were just kind of like, absolutely, Marshall's going to cover. And then other people were like, this is ridiculous. Let's just get this W and move on. What are some highlights that you maybe saw in this one as Ohio State was able to flex all the way on Marshall today?
Over 550 yards of offense. They looked fantastic in the process for this one. They get the win 49-14. The run game was fantastic there. Quinshon Judkins, 172 rushing yards with the 2 tutties. Marshall get the cover. They were grabbing 38.5 points. And for that total, it will skyrocket towards the overs. Only just there, 55.5. So 49-14. We'll take north of that number. I tell you what, early in this game, Thundering Herd, they were right in the mix. They just didn't have the depth or the fitness to run with them late. Ohio State finally flexed their muscles late in this one to sort of widen open that margin. But that scoreboard, that doesn't tell us how close this game really was, at least through the first half there for Marshall. They can take a lot of credit away from this performance. But Ohio State, they needed a big win, number 3 in the nation as it stands, and they lived up to the billing.
They absolutely did. I was going to get ready to pivot to another game, but I think this is a good time to bring up the top 25 poll chart, because heading into today, we saw some movement. One of my favorites, but people might think it's a little biased, is the fact that Texas took over that number 1 spot in front of Georgia. So I was just like, all right, now we're seeing some quality opinion. No, I'm going to take that off the table because everybody thinks I'm a Georgia hater. I am not. They're one of the most complete teams out there. But, Texas has really only had certain competitive matchups, if we could really say that. They haven't faced any mega teams quite yet. So is this an early hurdle for the top 25?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a bit of overreaction. Obviously, they're getting a lot of buzz in the media, whether it's Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning at quarterback there. But they look really strong again here, going through into Saturday evening for that 1 spot. Obviously, we're not going to get to see Georgia or Bama in the mix this weekend, but what a matchup that we get to look forward to next weekend. So look, Texas plus 500. I guess they've picked up enough style points in the process, and they're probably going to do enough to hold on to that number 1 spot. Ohio State, they were really strong in the mix there as well. But a lot of give and take, especially at this point of the season. But Texas continue to show up, and I feel like they're the buzz team the last couple of weeks, and they're certainly always going to carry a bit of extra weight as we move through the regular season.
Absolutely. An interesting top 5 here, most importantly top 10, which of course Dubs and I will continue to run through. But don't go anywhere. We got another quick break coming up. Stick with us here on SportsGrid TV.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind LA, that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Back at it here at College Football Today on SportsGrid TV. Kasey Hudson and Dubs Anderson giving you your college football Saturday slate rundown. What a mouthful, right? But that's just because we had so much good football, had some quality upsets, as Dubs mentioned before, and a lot of players that we have to key in a little closer on. So before we dive back in, that 15 points was not a hoax. We were not seeing things that officially happened. There's about 15 seconds left in the fourth quarter before Dubs and I jump into breaking down what we saw in that matchup. Then, again, still a stalemate, 6-0 for comes Kansas State and BYU. And we've got some movement going with Colorado versus Baylor. I told you this is going back and forth and back and forth. 31-30 right now. Colorado with the ball first and goal on Baylor's, 0 line, whatever you want to call it. So let's continue to run through our favorite games and top games of the day. Let's just say this. Arkansas State versus Iowa State was an interesting matchup, to say the least. I didn't expect the Cyclones to go full bullish and just have themselves a heyday versus Arkansas State, but that's exactly what took place. Looks like they're taking their victory very personally and continue to roll through the season. Did you catch this one, Dubs?
Yeah, I thought the Cyclones were fantastic here. Dominant performance, 52-7. And they held the Wolves there scoreless through the first 3, so it was never really close in this one. Rocco Becht, he throws for 2 touchdowns and ran for another. And Carson Hansen, he was fantastic there with that run game as well. So for Iowa State, remain undefeated. They've only played the 3 games thus far, but certainly a very impressive performance out there today. So for Arkansas State, they showed up. They didn't show up ready to play in this one. There's levels to this thing, and it was a bit of a mismatch. From the jump, the Cyclones get a big victory.
Oh, yes. Well, All right, this one's going to hurt for me to say properly. But speaking of impressive performances,
rip the
speaking
Band-Aid
of
off,
impressive
Kasey. Where are we
performances, the Florida Gators did well today. They found themselves with a 45-28 victory versus Mississippi State. So winning on the road is a good thing. Graham Mertz did well. And their run game, which is what I anticipated would be one of their biggest assets to at least get things going. 226 rushing yards overall, averaging 6.3 yards per carry. And their third down efficiency actually showed up today. I don't know why I said that so joyfully as if it matters. But, yep, Florida Gators get the win. The Swamp probably threw a massive party while the guys are on the road, so I'm sure they have a lot to celebrate over the next couple of days before they get back to brass taxes. But how about them Florida Gators? Ugh.
Yeah. Good for the excitement. It's really palpable coming across the old television screen there. For the Gators, big performance here, 45-28. And I tell you what was on the line for this one, Billy Napier. I mean, he needed a big victory. They've looked very mediocre to bring in for a new year here for Florida. So for Billy Napier, the pressure continues to build there. But this is a much needed victory, and I guess it takes a bit of relief off in that spot. From Mississippi State, the old Bulldogs, they were gallant. They were gallant in defeat. We saw that number. I'm trying to see what that number went off at prior to the jump there. But to keep it within 17 points, not a bad performance for the Gators. They're going to have to put a couple of more big ones together to just show us that they're the real deal. I'm not buying in yet, but they showed up. They got the victory, and it was much needed.
Yeah, not buying in yet either, but I definitely had a loaded telephone for all of my dear, dear Florida friends. Don't get too excited, guys. It's still very early. For another team that did not lack excitement, but didn't particularly show up as early in this matchup as they probably wish they would have, West Virginia taking on Kansas. Kansas looked like they were in control for a meter of this game. They found a way to come out on top 32-28, a neck-and-neck game where West Virginia continues to roll on. 1-3 against the spread, went into this matchup 2 for 2, but Kansas 0-4 against the spread. So I guess if you were gauging this game ahead of time, you knew to probably try to have faith and hold out hope for the Mountaineers. What'd you see in this one?
Yeah, they cover a close margin there, go off 1.5 favorites, 32-28. The poor old Jayhawks. It's been a middling start to their season so far. Take a look at the numbers and the standout performers there. I mean, Garrett Green, he was pretty strong with that passing game for the Mountaineers. 295 passing yards, 2 tutties, but did give up a couple of interceptions, so they're going to have to get that under wraps. And on the other side there, Jalen Daniels, only a measly 184 passing yards. It wasn't so efficient, had the 1 touchdown, but also gave up a interception there as well. I guess the shining light for a losing team was probably Devin Neal with that run game for the Jayhawks. So they've got a couple of nice looking pieces, a couple of weapons they can certainly build around. Defense looked a little better. This is going to be a bad beat for them to go on the road. Never an easy environment to play in over there in West Virginia, to keep it so close, to just be bested out there late in that fourth quarter. Not so good for the Jayhawks. For West Virginia, the Mountaineers, I'm sure the party continues here on a Saturday night.
Oh, I'd say so. The party never ends. Remember, we're in prime party season. I know a team that's definitely throwing a party tonight and is hoping to throw another party next weekend. It's going to be LSU. And some fans may feel like I didn't give them enough love, maybe that I disrespected them earlier, because after a narrow escape to South Carolina the other weekend, and I'm talking about a South Carolina team who was just falling apart with injuries, unfortunately, they barely pulled off a win. But does it say a lot, or does it say a little, that they were going against a UCLA team that has had offensive struggles? I don't think they've really found their identity yet. Their quarterback is sitting roughly at like a 54% completion rate, so not much snapping there. But they didn't just get past UCLA. Very small. They actually topped them 34-17, had about 10 minutes more of possession time, almost doubled their offensive yardage in comparison to UCLA. So was this a worthy performance by LSU today?
Yeah, I think it was strong, but, on the flip side, I really haven't seen a lot from the Bruins. So, how much can we really take away from this? Garrett Nussmeier, he needed a big performance, and he showed up and delivered there. The star quarterback for the Tigers goes for 352 passing yards, 3 tutties, not giving up a single interception. So it was much better on that side of things. In terms of the run game, they spread the rock, receiving. I mean, a good handful of receivers getting multiple targets and getting it downfield there. So the offense looked a lot better for the Tigers over UCLA 34-17. And taking a look at the schedule here for LSU, they'll get to take on South Bama next week. That's an easier spot for them. But then it's Ole Miss, it's Arkansas, it's the Aggies, Bama. So things are getting a lot tougher. They got to start finding a bit more rhythm there. But I guess that's one big takeaway for me. Garrett Nussmeier, he looked fantastic out there, the quarterback for LSU.
Yeah, he has a lot to be proud of, honestly. Not to mention is it to see how hopeful he was last week, even though it was a narrow escape. He already addressed that, and then he showed how much work that they were going to put in this week, and I think that it translated to today's game. Something else that translated, but it was a split decision yet again on who was taking what side. Rutgers taking on Virginia Tech. Rutgers come out on top 26-23. Another really good matchup here, but a lot of people felt like Virginia Tech should have been able to secure the W here, but Rutgers is a very hard team to play against. This matchup, what'd you see go down?
Didn't get a chance to watch this one, Kasey, but a couple of teams trying to find that stuff as we move in to this portion of the season. Though a bit of a rock fight, 26-23. The Rutgers coming up on top there, and I tell you what, they avoided one late here. Taking a look at the way the fourth quarter played up, the Hokies put up 16-3, so they were absolutely charging at the Scarlet Knights. But for Rutgers, they managed to hold on, survive, clinch one, go on to the next one. Virginia Tech, not a good spot there. They were 3.5-point favorites with that total sitting at 44.5. So if you overs bettors, well done, you cash. But if you try to play that home favorite, a bit of egg on the face here this afternoon. So not good on that side of things. In terms of the shining lights on offense, it was probably with the run game there for the Hokies. Tootin was fantastic, but other than that, this was a close game. It was a bit of a rock fight, bit of an arm wrestle for the Scarlet Knights. 26-23, now 3-0 to start the season. This is a great road victory for them.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. A lot of people were probably a little overly excited about the home team being able to manage and use the home momentum to their advantage. But heading into this one, you got a Virginia Tech team that 1-3 against the spread, 2-2 coming out, and it's Rutgers with a better record, 2-1 against the spread. So depending on where you leaned, at least you got some quality football. A couple more scores to run through. Some games are now officially in the books, and then we got to break down these betting cards. So don't go anywhere. Stick with us on the other side of this quick break.
Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right, but I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who can move. Right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore because you want that additional rushing yardage. You get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown. Right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable. Right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But I do have hope for him. I think at season's end he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson's going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, that hit. Remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
Welcome back into College Football Today, the post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Dubs Anderson. Sometimes I feel like I should just say your name first. Like, leave my name. Your name is so cool compared to mine. And then it's like, kind of like
Case
the build-up.
Case closed. You like that one, Kasey? That's what you're going to say when you go through your betting card. I know how good you've done on the betting side of things today. You're going to finish off with case closed. That's a wrap.
And then we're gonna. The show's a wrap. We're not gonna talk about anything else. We're gonna just go off.
That's
black
it.
Screens.
Early mark. Done.
Oh, we're going to make it a walk-off. That's what we're going to do, Dubs. But speaking of walk-offs, even though that's specifically usually just reserved for baseball, you guys know I like to cross-promote all the things. We got the game, Colorado right now, 38, or I can't say right now, 38-31, and what a bounce back they decided to make. I mean, they have completely made this game their own as much as possible. Sanders, 341 passing yards, 2 tutties, and a clean slate when it comes to the interceptions. And then talk about a team effort here, because Travis Hunter, who nobody is surprised to hear this, 7 receptions, 130 receiving yards. No tutty dance for him tonight, but Miller with a massive, crucial, important touchdown for Colorado. So a lot of action going on between the Baylor Bears and Colorado, and their ability to just go back and forth. But it sounds like Colorado is in complete control. Speaking of a team that is no longer in complete control, Kansas State allows BYU to get out of the shutout zone and puts 3 on the board. So now it's 6-3 as they continue to roll through. And then, as we predicted, the clock was winding down. It was sitting at about 15 seconds. Oklahoma Sooners only walk away with 15 points, matches their ranking. Then you got the Volunteers ranked number 6 with 25 points. Should we go ahead and get into this one, Dubs, really quick?
Yeah, let's get after it. You're going to have to lead us off there. Let's start with the quarterback. What'd you make of the star quarterback for the Volunteers tonight, Kasey?
You know, I think that he was having some issues, and obviously that reflects when you get pulled and Hawkins Jr. goes in and is able to put up 132 passing yards when Arnold was held to 54 passing yards. We did see a lot of frustration out of Arnold throughout the game. There was a number of times that cameras obviously veered to the sideline and saw him kind of march over to the bench, frustrated with himself. His wide receiving core came over to him, trying to kind of keep him perked up. So sometimes when you tap out mentally, it's really hard to get your physical body to buy in, and I think that was something that worked against Arnold today. Luckily, Hawkins was able to step in and try to get them some things shaking, especially doing picking up a passing touchdown, something we haven't seen much out of when it comes to the Sooners. And then as for the rush game, it's Hawkins that actually led his team, but it was only 22 rushing yards. They really just couldn't find a rhythm, and you're going against a Tennessee team that's pretty sharp. I expected Tennessee to rely on their run game a bit more, because you don't need to use Nico Iamalava's arm too much. Save it for now. There it is. Save it for now and let him really go to town as we get down the stretch of the season. But yeah, that's particularly what I saw. I'd say that I walked out with one decent bet in this matchup. So not too many happy dances for me here, but trust me, I've got bragging rights forever and ever and ever just because of earlier today. So that's what I saw in Tennessee, Oklahoma.
Casey, all I wanted to do batting leadoff was start with Nico's last name. That's all I needed. But you're such a professional. You've given us the full analysis. And I tell you what, for the Volunteers, they've looked fantastic here, and certainly one of the big contenders in the SEC. So they go 4-0 to start. Next week they take on Arkansas. Then they take on Florida at home. And then, of course, it's Bama, Kentucky. So a pretty tough schedule coming up. They don't continue to put up the points, but they continue to get it done. And this was certainly one of the tougher matchups. 2 ranked opponents going against the Boomer Sooners over there in Oklahoma. So 25-15. Nico continues to impress. He's playing really efficient football, and you highlighted they didn't need everything out of him, from this afternoon. I would say maybe he's still sitting on a bit of juice there as well. So that gives us a lot of confidence moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, him not needing to go all crazy right now is going to continue to help with my betting streaks, hopefully. I say that as I will probably throw a small tizzy over how this last betting card went about. But we're not there yet. We're going to get there shortly. I do actually want to pick your brain when it comes to the Heisman race. We've seen some movement, a little bit of musical chairs before we get there. If you did miss it earlier, Louisville did top Georgia Tech 31-19, one of the other top games of the day. And then let's get into this Heisman conversation. So, of course, when the books opened up, as we gauge this college football season, it was all about Mr. Beck. Beck this, Beck that, Beck sitting at the top. He barely moved down to second place. And then we started seeing a lot more movement coming in hot. So right now you got Cameron Ward sitting at the top of the charts. Jackson Dart, again, I mean, if you're not going to vote for the guy because of how well he's been playing between his arm and his legs, maybe vote for his hair. That's just my own personal opinion. Monroe for Alabama coming in third place. I don't think I've seen Alabama really go against anybody yet to throw him in third place, but whatever. Some people might think I'm being a hater on that one. Dylan Gabriel, kind of the same thing there. Haven't seen too much. Nico Ayamalava, whichever one, comes in shortly behind him. Quinn Ewers right behind him, and then Carson Beck sitting right ahead of Will Howard for Ohio State. So what do you like about the movement in this market so far, or what's been the most surprising move, I guess I could ask too?
Yeah, if we're looking at the stat stuff, there's no surprises here. Cam Ward continues to shorten up in the market. Another 404 passing yards with 3 touchdowns this afternoon, getting a big score this evening, I should say, 50-15 over South Florida. So still sitting there at plus 450. Jalen Milroe and Bama, didn't get to see him in the mix, but certainly looks to be a referendum game coming up next weekend. So that will be the full test. If he goes off with a big performance, Bama are well and truly back. DeBoer continues to have a fantastic first season at the helm after Nick Saban, much in thanks towards that star quarterback played there from Milroe. For Jackson Dart, led the offense, has been strong once again. The big buzz this week was Arch Manning taking over the starting role there for Quinn Ewers. Not that that's going to be the case moving forward. I do think Texas get back to Quinn Ewers. Arch Manning, again, a very spectacular Saturday evening show there for the Longhorns. That was probably the biggest shortening we saw this week, and the public's obviously going to get behind that storyline, but I don't think that's the play for mine. I actually like the look of Quinn Ewers now sitting at plus 1,200. I think he comes back in as the starting quarterback. I think he leads Texas throughout the rest of the season, and I do think they're going to be vying for one of the top spots as a national championship contender. And I think Quinn Ewers, this is the buy low spot for me.
Oh, yeah, I'm right there with you for Quinn Ewers. I mean, again, you don't have to really overutilize these guys in order for them to make a big contention for the top spot here. And guess what I didn't do, Dubs? I did not mention Matthew McConaughey in any aspect of Texas football today. But we do have betting cards to get to, so don't go anywhere. Stick with us on the other side of this quick break.
Do we have a fantasy star on our hands here, George? Here is the question with Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. A lot of folks went into the fantasy season saying, hey, look, maybe this isn't Anthony Richardson, but it could be the next best thing. I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I'm sort of feeling like Daniels could be better than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know if I'm going to go there yet, all right, but I think he's in the conversation, yeah. What did we hear at draft time? A lot of people wanted a quarterback who could move. Right? You don't want the guy who's going to take 5-7 steps and throw the football anymore, because you want that additional rushing yards. You get 50, 60 yards, that's a touchdown. Right? That's why Josh Allen is so valuable. Lamar Jackson is so valuable. Right? You go up and down. Jalen Hurts. You go up and down here. I think Daniels is going to be a good quarterback. I think Washington got their guy, and he can throw the football too. We know McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. It may not be much else there. We'll see what McCaffrey can be. Luke McCaffrey can be there in time. But I do have hope for him. I think at season's end he's going to be a quarterback one. It may be a low end quarterback one, but a quarterback one nonetheless.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching him in that game. All right, now Anthony Richardson, look, he's going to have a big year. He's going to have a big fantasy year. There's no question about it. I don't know about the long-term viability here. And look, give him credit. He hung in there with the Houston Texans. My fear for him, George, is that when you go back and you watch film, if you protect the deep ball against Richardson, he could hurt you with his legs. And that may be where all of his fantasy value is coming from. I cannot see him throwing 2 70-yard bombs like he did again.
That should come in time, right? Practice time. I think he will get better here. I think Richardson's going to be fine. Does need to learn how to avoid hits. All right. Once again, remember that hit from Tua last night? He initiated it. Slide. The rules are made for you not to get hit. Take advantage of them.
What's going on, football fans? We've got one more rally here at College Football Today, the post-game show with myself, Kasey Hudson, and Dubs Anderson. I almost said myself, Dubs Anderson. But that just lets you know that we are gearing towards the close of the night. We have run through all of the exciting games. We did a little Heisman talk, which I was stoked about, and Dubs and I are on the same page yet again. Loved your betting card that you posted earlier, so I figured now is just a humbling time to just get into it. Let's see what your betting card is buying you, maybe a new pair of sneakers or a hat that you will never crease. Talk to me, Dubs. What'd your card look like today?
Yeah, look, it was close to being a dynamite card, but a couple of bad beats to finish off here. So had Michigan at home grabbing 4.5. They obviously got the straight up win over USC. That was probably the biggest performance for the day there. Also had the Canes laying 17.5. They go on to carry the torch late in that one, 50-15. So we get the cover on that side. Had the unders, Tennessee going against Oklahoma, 57.5 was the mark. Tennessee ended up getting the win there, 25-15. So the unders cashes on that one. But I'll tell you what, a couple of silly bets here. Like Arch Manning, I'll put the hand up. I fell in love with his storyline. I fell in love with the big run that he snapped off last week. I think he went for -4 rushing yards. Obviously, with the college, he gets sacked. They're going to take that off. But 34.5 was his rushing mark. Didn't go close to that one. But he looked very strong out there for the Longhorns. And then my Aggies, 8.5 was the spot. And they had this one covered up until the final couple of plays. And then they let it go there. So at 8.5, they end up winning 26-20 over Bowling Green over there at Kyle Field. But they win by 6. The number was 8.5. Give me a couple of tissues. I'm going to cry myself to sleep here, Kasey. So 3 for 5, not a bad afternoon, but it doesn't sound like it's quite going to match yours. How'd you go?
It's humbly, it's not going to match. And look at what a good friend I am, Dubs. I did not make them put up the check marks and the X's on your betting card as you were speaking. I could have interrupted that whole process and made sure that happened. But let's throw up some winners. That would be my card tonight. Yes, it is. Starting with... Well, no, guys, not this one. The winning card. Look at how my team just humbles me. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate this, gentlemen. I took Michigan as first half winners, and I did this for a strategic reason. As much as I believed in the Wolverines to get a confident victory today, not particularly by a long margin, but I thought that they could have pulled off the win. I wasn't 100% sure what was going to happen. When you look closely to the numbers, though, Michigan's a team that can kind of put up a fight in that first half and start to fall apart in the third quarter, whereas the third quarter is kind of USC's bread and butter for the most part. So first half winners checked out for Michigan as well as the victory. Mullings, I mean, this guy, to even put him at 60-plus rushing yards is almost disrespectful to what he has brought to the run game this year, but you got to play it safe. You can't get too crazy, especially if you're going to be this level of excited over a card that looks like this. So Mullings cashes in for me, 60-plus rushing yards, because, of course, he just had another wicked performance of 150, whatever. Alex Orji, of course, after breaking down what he was going to bring to the table, they needed somebody who was going to also help contribute to the run game. They did not bring Orji in to throw the ball much whatsoever. That was not the expectation, hence the 40-plus rushing yards that we're able to cash into. So this was card one that did well for me today and will be posted on my wall as bragging rights forever and ever. Amen. For the next one, I took it to the Notre Dame game, and this one kept me on my toes. I'm not going to lie. I didn't think that I'd be bragging much at all today once the guys get this one switched out. It was going to be, or it was, a 3-leg parlay so that it can come in at value of plus 315. It was Riley Leonard under 170.5 passing yards. They don't need this guy to do more than 125 passing yards. I mean, even if that. Why? Because Riley Leonard has decided that he's going to turn into a running back in the middle of a game. Last week had a 100 rush yard performance. This week did the same thing, matching that energy, which is also why I took over 51.5 rushing yards. So that came in nice and lovely. And speaking of love, a nice tutty from Love added to the value of this card. So that's also where I was able to cash in on a nice little 3-leg parlay. I feel so fancy. So yeah, that's the exciting part of the card. I'm an accountable person, so I'll quickly run through this before we close out the night, Dubs. For my last card, it was Arnold over 27.5 rushing yards. As we know, Jackson Arnold did not stay in the game, so that did not happen. Arnold over 1.5 passing tutties. Well, I said if there was going to be any touchdown action for the Sooners, they were going to have to figure out how to spread out the secondary in the red zone. And while it happened, it did not happen for Arnold. Under 256 passing yards for Nico Iamaleava. if I said that correctly, and that actually hit. South Florida covered was not the case, and then Brown under 235.5 passing plus rushing yards, also not the case. He hit it right at 235, I believe. So I was humbled at the end of the night. Dubs, I think we could say that.
America, you are welcome. Case closed, dishing out winners for the College Football Super Saturday slate. I tell you what, Kasey, pressure's building. I look forward to next week. Bama taking on Georgia.
Join us next week, y'all.